N. Scott Momaday writes stories based upon the oral tradition of his Native American people, the Kiowas. For Momaday, narrative writing, or writing that tells a story, springs from experience and imagination and is shaped according to certain rules.
Narrative, by definition, is design. It is the telling of a story according to rules. A story has shape. You know, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, as we say. And you must be aware of that, and you must be aware of the relationships among those parts. And you must sustain them. And there are all sorts of lesser rules along the way. Things that involve clarity, things that involve pictorial aspects, things that involve sound, lyricism, characterization, every possible thing that you can find in a literary dictionary, you can fit into the long definition of narrative.
For Momaday, inspiration for narrative writing can come from any imaginable direction. He feels you don't look for it. Inspiration comes looking for you.
You are inspired by something you see or hear or feel. A piece of music, for example, may trigger a piece of writing. I will be talking to someone, for example, and he or she will say something to me that triggers that kind of creative response that is the writer's province. If it's the right kind of inspiration, it will remain in your mind and in your heart. And then you begin to organize it in terms of writing.
Momaday begins developing a story idea by planning out his plot.
It deals with a central event or a series of events, and these events must fall into a design. The writer must place them in relation to each other in a kind of meaningful or symmetrical or beautiful relationship to each other.
Once he has shaped his story, Momaday creates his characters.
Writers of novels invent characters, and they have responsibilities to those characters. You have to keep him alive for the course of the narration. You must have the character grow, change, respond to this situation, to that. And that, too, is a great responsibility, not easy to do, but it's what the writer does. And it's part of his creative responsibility.
Setting is also extremely important to Momaday. The tradition of the Kiowas is strongly linked to the Great Plains, which he describes often in his writings.
Establishing a setting, describing a room, or a house, or a piece of ground, a landscape, this can add immeasurably to the story, the telling of the story. If you can see the character, say, or the event against this background, which is also visible and attractive in its own right, the better the story.
With a sense of character, plot, and setting, Momaday begins drafting his story. He pays careful attention to his development of the story's conflict.
There must be conflict. Certain people or certain things must be in conflict with other people or other things. This provides the tension which keeps your reader interested. Conflict represents suspense, and stories ought to be suspenseful. We ought to feel our adrenaline rise when we read a story. We ought to be curious about what has happened or what is going to happen.
As he writes, Momaday chooses his words carefully.
You must choose language that works. The plain extends beyond our time. Shall I verify this before the plants and animals? The simpler the better, the clearer the better, the more lyrical, the more appealing.
Unlike many writers, Momaday revises as he writes. He constantly reads over what he's written and looks for ways to improve it.
Revision simply means to rearrange, to look at what you've written, and you ask the question, can I do this more effectively? Can I do it in a better way? Let's see. So you rewrite the first sentence, say, and you conclude either that you have improved it or you haven't. And that's the process, and it goes all the way through, from beginning to end. It's not an easy thing to revise a book of some length. It's hard work, but it's worth doing. If you have two people talking to each other in a narrative, they must be believable. You have to be careful of the language they use and the way in which they use it. Because if it doesn't reflect reality, then, as I say, it doesn't work. Something is lost. I think that in order to achieve the expression of conflict in a story, all you really need to do is think about conflict in your own life. You come to a place where a decision must be made and you don't know what the right decision is. As I say, the blood rises and you live a little bit closer to the edge of things. And this sharpens your life. It enhances your understanding and appreciation of what is going on around you.